Hello and welcome everyone, Lana here with another raw review. I'm going to be reviewing the GAMDIAS HEPHAESTUS, but not in the box. It's around my neck already, and it's around there because I find these things incredibly comfortable, and I'm hopefully going to show you guys why. But first of all, let's have a little look at some of the features of this headset, the HEPHAESTUS Almighty.
The GAMDIAS HEPHAESTUS has some amazing features, notably 7.1 virtual surround, its blast source identifier which sends a shock vibration from the left or right ear cup depending on the sound that's being created, whether that's in-game or in audio. For music and other effects, it'll be enhancing the bass that you'll hear, whereas in-game explosions, in games such as Battlefield 4, you'll hear the shockwave of the explosion from the left or right ear cup to simulate that effect. You also have the HEPHAESTUS cooler system, some built-in aluminium heat sinks on both ear cups to try and keep your ears at the optimum temperature to stop those nasty ear sweats. It's got an ergonomic comfort design, a leather headband and ear pads for comfort during prolonged gameplay, so that should be pretty darn comfortable for absolutely everyone. The microphone is a noise cancelling one, and it also features a flexible mic boom, which is a step up from previous headsets that GAMDIAS have released. This is all supported by the Eros controlled GAMDIAS sound software, which allows you to change the pitch of your voice, sensitivity, and even play around with some magic voice effects. Looking at the headset, comes with a USB connector and controller with volume up and down, microphone mute button, and on and off for the blast source identifier. This is the GAMDIAS HEPHAESTUS.
So there we go, we've looked at some of the features of the GAMDIAS HEPHAESTUS headset. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? Especially those heat sinks either side. So let's have a little bit more of an in-depth look at the headset, and I will give my thoughts, pros and cons of the headset. Then we'll have a mic test, and then I'll wrap it all up with a score for this headset. So this is the HEPHAESTUS headset. The first thing you're going to notice about these things is the design. They look pretty awesome. Space Age-y, Star Wars-y, you know, they look awesome. They look like they're from the future. So I guess that helps GAMDIAS, you know, trying to push forward into the future, bring innovation to the gaming peripheral market. And I think they've certainly done that with the HEPHAESTUS. I've never seen a headset which has heat sinks on either side to try and cool down your ears. In fact, I don't know of many headsets that actually try and offer a ear cooling solution. My current headset, the Corsair Vengeance 1500 V1s, do get incredibly hot, and that's also because that headset is actually quite tight on my head, and it does clamp down. Not too vice-like, but it's not exactly the most pleasant experience after several hours. And I am constantly sort of going, oh, my ears burn, they're hot. I'm a naturally hot person anyway, but but yeah, my ears do get rather hot for prolonged gaming sessions, as I'm sure many of yours do as well. So the heat sinks are in there to try and cool down your ears, which I think is a brilliant idea. While the body is made out of plastic, it's actually pretty strong. There's not much shake or rattle to them. You know, obviously they've got a little bit on them, and also you can do this with them. You can turn them sideways so they can rest down like that when you're not interested. Although I would say that this isn't probably the best way they could have done it, because you now have the mic jabbing into your neck a little bit. Obviously you can flexi move it any way you want, and obviously you can have it down here if you wanted to. So I guess that's the way of doing it. Make sure you turn it down before you you know, switch them out, because otherwise you're going to bash yourself in the face. Oh. So what else is there? The mic is considerably improved over the last GAMDIAS headset that I reviewed, which I have down here, which is the GAMDIAS Eros. Now I should say, I'm not going to bash this headset because this is a far cheaper headset than this one in the price range. This is around about £35 to £40, and this one retails up to about £70 depending on where you look. When I did review this headset, I did say about the mic boom that I didn't like that it was a solid plasticky boom, and I would like some flex in it, because actually this mic was actually a really good mic. It was just too sensitive for its own good, and the fact that you couldn't pull it back any further meant that there's not much you could do unless you change a lot of settings and things like that. And obviously you can see this thing rattles a little bit because it's the plastic isn't as solid. The Hephaestus, though, improves upon that, and this is GAMDIAS's current flagship headset model, which I think I've already mentioned. But yeah, it does look pretty darn cool. I mean, you've got the hammer on the side, the hammer of Hephaestus, the armor smith of the gods. It's pretty darn cool. But yeah, the mic, I like that you can flex it pretty much anywhere. And actually, when you the kind of natural position for the mic, as you can see, is quite a way away. So as we'll see in the mic test in a minute, this is actually a pretty reasonable mic. And the fact that you can keep it out here prevents the issues that we had with the Eros, where it was just a bit too oversensitive and kind of a bit too eager to capture all that sound. So this way you can have it way out here, you can have it really close if you want to, you can have it down here, you can have it over there, you can even have it out there. I don't know why you'd want it out here, maybe if your friend's talking and you're just listening or something like that. But it is pretty flexible, but it comes back into shape nicely, and you just flick it up when you're done. Now, unlike some other headsets, this is obviously USB powered, as we can see from the lovely little controller down here, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a smidge. Because it's USB powered, obviously you can't plug that into, say, your phone through the 3.5mm jack, and there's obviously no adapter that comes with it to change that. To be fair, these are, I mean, they're not the biggest headphones ever, but with the design and with the mic obviously on there, these aren't exactly the ones that you're going to walk down the street wearing, you know, listening to your favourite music. That said, the sound quality of these things is pretty darn good. It is a 7.1 virtual surround, although, as you'll see on the box, that red sticker at the top says 7.2. That's because there is a subwoofer in each one which works with their sound blaster or sound blast identifier. Blast source identifier, actually. I'm just looking at the box to find out the proper name for it, which basically creates vibrations from each of the little subwoofers in each ear cup to, you know, add to the bass and give it a little vibration. So when you're playing something like Battlefield and an explosion goes off to your left, you'll get a nice big brrr. I'm doing brrr because there's honestly no way of explaining how this feels, and I read a couple of other people's reviews on these before I made my own, to see what other people thought, and actually a lot of people agree with me. This is a great feature, but it's really hard to explain what it feels like. But basically it's like the ear pads vibrate. Basically it's like having a little subwoofer in your ear. Well, it is a subwoofer in your ear, and it vibrates to enhance the bass and to, you know, give a richer experience. So it's kind of a 7.2 experience they give you there, although it's virtual 7.1. The sound of virtual 7.1 is pretty good. The channels are all pretty clear. The lows will kind of get a little bit muffled and perhaps turn into a bit of a vibration-y rumble when you have the blast source identifier switched on, which is controlled obviously by the switch on the little controller there. So it does kind of take down some of the lows there, but the highs and mids remain reasonably clear. The 7.1 probably isn't the sharpest I've ever heard, the clearest 7.1 virtual surround, but for gaming and for all your gaming needs, this is more than adequate, and the 7.1 is actually pretty darn good. But for music, to be fair, I wouldn't recommend you buy these just for music purposes. If you're looking for a great gaming headset, then these are pretty darn good, and the 7.1, the 7.2, when you switch that on, is pretty good. Yeah, and also I should say that you can obviously switch that blast source identifier on and off if you don't want it. But I personally feel it really does enhance bass. When you are listening to music, my God, it's brilliant bass. It's like having a well, again, I'm saying this, it's like having a subwoofer. There actually are two little subwoofers in your ears. But I should say, some of you are going to be like, subwoofer in your ear, that's probably like dangerous in the sounds and things like that. It does it without it being too loud, which is great. I don't like it when headsets are too loud. The maximum volume of these things is not loud. In fact, I've got a bit of music playing in the background. Let's play that. Make sure this is on maximum volume. So I don't know if you can hear that. To be fair, it's not the loudest part of the piece of music. So that's it on full loudness. I don't know how well it's capturing on the camera, but obviously if you can hear it, then yeah. If you can't, then even better. But with all the kind of heat sinks and padding around it, it's not going to, you know, throw out too much sound. When it's on your head, obviously, you're not going to lose pretty much any of that quality. It's pretty darn good. But this is the maximum volume it goes to. It doesn't become too overpowering, and you can comfortably listen to it at 100% without it, you know, being damaging for your ears. And it's quite a comfortable experience. Obviously, those of you that are probably looking for a headset that you can boost to insane levels of sound, maybe this isn't the one for you, but for, you know, the average gamer, this is brilliant. The sound is very good. So let's have a little look at the controller now. Now, you will see that the blue light is flashing. Now, some people have sort of said that this is a bit annoying, and I can kind of see why. This flashes whenever you have basically an audio program. Right now I've got Windows Media Player open in the background. Just pause on that clip of music that I was just playing you guys out through this. And it will flash basically when there's a music or audio program being used, and when you're on a TeamSpeak server or you're talking to someone, it will flash. Now, personally, I don't game looking at my controller like that. I have seen people sort of saying the flickering is annoying and distracts them, but I don't personally, as I said, game looking at it going, it's flashing, it's flashing. Maybe that's why some people aren't as good in games as others, because they're looking at their controllers too much, but you know. So honestly, I don't think that's too much of an issue. I honestly don't see why it needs to flash, so you know it's on. Just the solid blue ring would be fine, because it's solid blue. If I close the program down now, actually, I'll hold this up so you guys can see it. I'll close the audio program down, and now it just goes solid blue. So I don't really see the need for it to flash, to be honest, but you know, fair enough, it does. If you press it down, it will just go solid red. For if you want to mute the microphone, again, pretty standard max and minimum controls on it, and then you've got your you've got your blast source identifier. I will say this right eventually. This blast source identifier on/off switch at the side, which basically turns those subwoofers on to blast out some sound at you. Now, before we hear the mic test, what don't I like about the headset? Well, we'll hear the mic test in the moment, and I'll kind of give you a conclusion on that. But in terms of the sound, it's pretty good. The bass actually without the sound blast, or the blast source identifier rather, isn't exactly the loudest bass ever. To be honest, I would recommend having the blast source identifier on. Yes, I said it right. I would recommend having that on when you are listening to kind of bassy songs. Sometimes actually the blast source identifier could even be probably a little bit more louder, but there's no way of actually setting the level of those vibrations. But on the whole, it's a great idea. That coupled with the heatsinks is pretty darn solid. In terms of sound, and I'm trying to think of some other cons here really. I'll talk about a few more cons in a moment with the mic software, or the software that comes with it. But really, to be honest, you can plug and play this thing in straight away without any software. You don't actually have to install the software if you don't want to. It just gives you a few more options to play around with. But so easy to use. You just plug it straight in. I love that the mic is flexy. The heat sinks keep your ears cool. The 7.1, 7.2, if you turn that blast source identifier on, is pretty darn good. And I haven't seen a feature like that before in a headset, so I can't really fault that. So anyway, let's have a mic test, and then I will wrap up the review and give it a score.
Okay, so we're now going to do a mic test with the GAMDIAS HEPHAESTUS headset, followed by the Corsair Vengeance 1500 to compare the mic quality there. I'm currently using the HEPHAESTUS, and we're going to have a look at the GAMDIAS EOS software again. You've seen this before if you watched my Eros GAMDIAS headset review. Hasn't changed. It's still using, unfortunately, what is a rather ugly interface, to be honest. It's pretty sort of 1990s, and it's a shame because the GAMDIAS HERA software that runs all their other peripherals is so beautiful and looks incredibly sexy, and by comparison this doesn't, but it does what it needs to do. I should say, as I've said before, you don't actually need this software installed to use the headset, and you don't really need it to really do too much. You can do that with all the standard Windows options that you have, or your own sound controllers and things like that. But this does offer a few sort of little fun features to play around with. So obviously you can turn the 7.1 virtual speakers on and off if you want to, change the system input, analog output and all that. You've got the mixer, which is pretty standard. You can change the microphone output volume, you can listen to it yourself, digital speaker output as well. For volume levels, you've got effects, so you've got the equalizer, which you can set to lots of predefined ones. You can put your environment size for the type of room you're in as well, to help with that 7.1 system. Karaoke and Magic Voice, which I'll just show you Magic Voice because
it's always fun. So we're starting here with the Monster Voice, which is probably my favourite.
And then we have the cartoon, so you can pretend like you're, I don't know, what are cartoons these days? What's a popular cartoon? Last one I watched I really enjoyed was Ed, Edd n Eddy. Good old Cartoon Network.
Then you've got the male voice, which just sounds a little bit creepy, if memory serves.
And the female voice as well, which probably with my kind of deeper voice doesn't sound great either. But
For me, it's the monster voice. So if you want to just, mess around with some funny voices, you've got that option there, but, they're
Pretty random effect. Not most of you are going to probably want that. It's just going to be fun probably to, I don't know, freak out people on Skype or something. And you've got the information, it's the X-Ear software. Rather than, I think, GAMDIAS's own. Would be nice to see them do their own kind of software or integrate this somehow into the HERMES software, because that is just, as I said, a beautiful system. So, you've heard this is all with the Hephaestus mic. We're now going to hear the Corsair Vengeance briefly, and then we'll wrap up the review. Okay, so now just testing out, or rather just using the Corsair Vengeance 1500 headset and the microphone on that. This is what I used to record all my current Let's Plays with. So, this is the sound quality from the Corsair Vengeance 1500. There you go.
So that was the mic test for the GAMDIAS Hephaestus, and I've got to admit, I don't know about you guys, that actually wasn't that bad. Now, I've been reviewing quite a few headsets recently, and I've generally been just disappointed that none of them matched up to the quality of my Corsair Vengeance. Now, while these aren't as good, they're pretty darn close. They are probably, I could move it out a little bit to be less sensitive when I'm sort of saying lots of S's. It picks up S's and quite harshly. But bar that, it's a pretty decent mic. So, if you're not looking, the reason why I go for the Corsair so much is that actually that headset is quite uncomfortable. The software and drivers for the Corsair aren't that great, and in fact, I don't run with the drivers for that headset at the moment because it causes too many problems. I probably will be doing a review on the Corsair in a while, but the reason why I use that headset is because the mic is so good, and I don't have a standalone mic at the moment. However, if you are looking for a far more complete package with software that you either can use or you don't need to use, and the software, even though it's that quite dated interface, it's pretty easy to see what does what. There's no complicated menus and technical jargon to get lost behind. It's pretty easy to see what features you want. But as I said, you don't really need to do too much. You can just configure the headset as a 7.1 device and you're pretty good to go. The microphone is pretty darn good, and I've used this on TeamSpeak with some friends, and compared to some of the other mics that I've used, they were quite happy with the quality of my voice on the Hephaestus. So the mic definitely gets a thumbs up from me. For this price range, for this sort of product, this is the kind of mic quality I would expect at least. So I'm very pleased with this. It's nice, it's not too overly sensitive, and the fact that you can flex it around means that you've probably got far more room to tweak that to your own voice and settings as such. Sound-wise, this is a pretty decent headset. As I said, the sound probably isn't as powerful as some other headsets, and for music I wouldn't recommend you just buy solely for music, but with that blast source identifier, said it again right, woo! It really does actually enhance bassy songs. So while some of the lows do get a little bit muffled, it's actually pretty enjoyable experience for listening to bassy music. So if you're into that kind of thing, then these double as a great pair of headphones as well. But obviously, unfortunately, because it's USB powered, you can't exactly take it down the street plugged into your MP3 player or whatever. Do people use MP3 players anymore? What am I talking about? iPads, or you don't walk down the street with an iPad. What am I talking? iPods. That's what I'm thinking. Your music player, whatever you use. So yeah. Cons-wise, I guess the flashing light could be a bit annoying on that, although it's unplugged at the moment, so it's not showing. The software is probably, I think it could do with an overhaul. The sound isn't necessarily as powerful on some other headsets, but the sound nonetheless is great for gaming. The blast source identifier is a really cool feature, and for games like Battlefield 4 when you're hearing explosions around you, that's pretty awesome. The heatsinks are great. Keeps your ears cool. This is a comfy headset. The band is very nice and cushy, as are the ear pads. And while it might be plastic, it's pretty solid. And I like the swivel, even if for me personally I would prefer a swivel going the other way rather than facing in. But yeah, and again, the mic quality, definite thumbs up from me. And you guys will know that I think I could probably say I know my fair few things about headset mics now. So for me to say it's a decent headset mic. Yeah, and you heard the mic test. You can decide for yourselves if you don't agree with me. Fair enough. But for the price, it's pretty darn reasonable. I'm going to give the GAMDIAS Hephaestus a 9 out of 10. If that software could be improved and perhaps kind of slightly more powerful 7.1 virtual surround there, at point, it would be better. And if there was a way of bringing in that blast source identifier without muffling too many of the lows, then it would be, you know, a full 10 out of 10. But for its price, that's a pretty darn good headset. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this raw review. Please do check out my other reviews in the description. There'll be a link to that playlist where you can check them all out, and I'll hopefully bring you some more reviews very soon. So as always, hope you enjoyed. Please do remember to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Keep up with all the latest information about my channel. I will see you all again soon. Ciao for now. Hephaestus.